Lord Jesus Christ, for your glory, power, and dominion forever. Thanks, Brian. Dear Lord, we lift this to you as an offering. As our hearts, we say thank you for this beautiful day that you have made, for our friends, for the gifts that await us. We say thank you. Amen.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for the springing, fresh from the world. Sweep the rains new fall softly from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where his feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden's all proclaim. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day.
I have to say that I always thought it was Cat Stevens who wrote that. I don't know if other people did too, but that was written back in 1931 by Eleanor Fargen. I think that's how you say it. Beautiful, beautiful song. Yeah.
I think the actual music is from a few hundred years ago.
It's a Scottish. You're right.
Yeah.
It's a Scottish hymn, Scottish ballad or something. Yeah. And she wrote the words to it, and then just grew up knowing it from Cat Stevens. Yeah. Well, welcome, people, friends, to Abiding in the Vine, and the virtue that we're looking at today is empathy. When we started the project Abiding in the Vine, I had a list of 100 virtues, and I thought, is that too many? Is it too many virtues to look at in terms of, are you going to repeat yourself? Are they going to fold over the top and lay over the top? And even as we're about halfway through, and even as we work through the project, I've realised how rich and important it is to have different words for different states. And empathy is a very rich word. It's a very rich word in that we would often think of it or compare it to sympathy, compassion, but it has its own qualities in it. Let's begin. Have a look on the order of the service there on the front. Empathy empowers the advancing soul with the ability to look beyond one's own life and explore the feelings and thoughts of others. with this virtue comes greater compassion, thoughtfulness, and understanding of our fellow human beings and their experience of life. Empathy allows us to deeply touch the lives of others while strengthening and reassuring their current states. So again, I brought up the difference there between empathy and sympathy. And a lot of people don't realize that sympathy, as it stands, is more of a pity. There's even a sense of condescending sometimes, looking down. Take, for example, the slums of India. If you think about the way many of them live, millions actually crammed into a small space, sometimes built right on top of each other in something not much bigger than a cardboard box that you'd get a big flat screen TV. Now, that'd be about the space they live in. It's phenomenal if you've ever seen a documentary on it. And thinking about it would invoke compassion, a sense of us looking at it from where we live down into where they're living. And that's not empathy. It's more in the realm of sympathy. What empathy does is it allows us to actually reach right in and share the pain and suffering with someone for a moment. So those touched by our empathy will not feel so alone or isolated. Equally, this virtue affords us greater sensitivity and reflectivity around our actions and words, showing us how we are impacting the lives of everyone else. Empathy protects us from passing judgment on each other while energizing our desire for justice for all. It definitely does protect us from judging. But there is a warning here with empathy. Can anyone think of a negative aspect to empathy? That's very insightful, Guan. Yeah, you say indifference. Yes. When we look at the moment at the dictionary breakdown, indifference is an antonym, the opposite. But empathy is a spotlight. It causes you to narrow in and focus, usually in on one person, and so there can become an element of indifference to others, and that's something we need to be aware of with a virtue like this, empathy. So in the writings, in Swedenborg's writings, he talks a lot about the importance of generals versus particulars and specifics. Does everyone, I think we wouldn't quite know. So general is just getting a basic understanding of a spiritual concept. Then we begin to see it applied on a closer level, like on a society or a family or really close, maybe a small group. Then you learn to get right down to the particulars where you see it applying to you. And that's empathy. Compassion, pity, empathy. Empathy is getting you right down on that one-to-one level where you're connecting with someone and sharing their experience right at that moment. I heard Dr. Brené Brown put it beautifully. She said, look, often we think we're giving empathy and we're giving sympathy, and we'll use the at least, you know. Oh, Johnny's failing at grade 10. Well, at least Jenny's passing, you know. And the at least, you know, it's what she called silver lining your dark cloud. So you're caught in a moment where everything's dark, a pit, and someone comes along and tries to put a silver lining around it. That's sympathy. It's compassion, but it's not empathy. Often what a person needs to hear is, oh, I've got no words. Wow. And just you sharing with them in that experience of empathy. So I've been guilty of silver lining. I've been guilty of trying to, you know, give people the positive, isn't it? Give them the uplift. And what I need to do is just come in and be with them. Yeah, just be with them at that moment. Yeah. So let's have a look.
Listen without providing answers.
It's tough, isn't it, Ian? Listen without providing answers.
Yeah. Often in that state, people just want to unload what is hurting them.
I'm thinking, do we have to have experienced a situation to have true empathy? Like, do we have to have a have experienced a similar situation to empathise with somebody in this.
That's a good question. Does anyone want to throw a
Throw it out and say no.
yes?
Because,
Say no?
The danger is, as I found, is that you read the other person's situation through your experience, and that's not their experience. It may be that you say that they're doing, or they're going through the same. No, they're not. Nobody ever goes through the same experience. And I did make that mistake myself.
Mm.
Of reading somebody's situation, I thought it was the same as mine or ours. It wasn't.
Mm.
It was the same trigger, but their reaction to it was altogether different. So I do believe that second thing there, listening.
With ears of another.
Right.
Mm.
I think listening is very core there, is just to reassure people that you're hearing what hurt is there.
I like your emphasis on hearing too, Ian, because often when we're talking, we're already constructing our next response.
Yeah.
We're not really listening. We're kind of listening, responding. And that's good, because that's part of communication. But I think, as you say, empathy is about getting down and really listening on their level. And it's my conviction, Bev, I love your question, but this is my conviction, that we're all built by the Lord with an ability to actually connect with the psyche of another. We're built with this ability to actually feel them, to literally feel their pains. But it can be overwhelming. You know, being empathic all the time is not really going to equip you in life. Sometimes you need a very high rational compassion. Sometimes you need that thinking side that Ian's talking about there. Compassion, but you've got the rational. Empathy is about going down into the moment and just being with them and saying, you are not alone. Very powerful. The person suddenly feels a way out instead of...
I'm thinking, how do you lift somebody out from that state? And it occurred to me, whilst you've done the listening, and hearing and feeling their state, if there is another person involved, is to try and understand, shift that focus from self to the other person, because they need empathy too. So
The one offering...
each other's,
Yes, yeah.
states.
The word itself means literally in feeling. Pathos. In feeling. You're in a feeling state. You're not...
Sympathy is more removed.
It is more intellectual. Sympathy is more about analysing the situation and wanting to do something about it, where empathy is about just being in that same state with them. Mm. Even as us as a small spiritual community, I've asked the Lord over and over again, what can we do to reach people more? And this is where I felt the Lord sort of lovingly put his finger on me and say, Darren, you're always offering solutions. It's just part of what you do, you know. And this is where I felt the Lord showed me problem, solution, action. Take time to connect with the person around the problem. They're way more able to receive a solution, and then you can give them an action that they can take. So the empathy allows you to just be with them. And how do we help them? Well, they're more ready to be helped because the mind says, hey, you've identified my problem with such, you've nailed it. You must have an answer.
But the answer may be raised up later.
Yes.
They may not be on the same occasion.
Yes, that's true.
Say, look, I thought a lot about when I sat with you on Tuesday, and I'm just wondering how you are. And
Yeah, very good, Ian. That's very good. It's not going to be instant, is it? You're not going to just being with someone.
it really is going to
But I think sometimes it's also allowing them to lift themselves up.
Oh, it
Like,
is. It is.
Yes.
in the sense of offering solutions or anything, just give them that space where then they know they're not, as you say, not alone, so that they can then find ways of getting out of it.
Very good. That's very good. It really is. Ultimately, it is the Lord rescuing us, but even the Lord gives us a space to feel that we're doing it, that we're lifting ourselves out. That's how ownership comes about. So let's have a look. Taming our life. Think about how empathy could potentially transform your feelings towards someone you dislike. So now you've got to think about someone you really don't like. Would empathy help you with them? Yes, it does, doesn't it? Next time you're finding yourself gritting your teeth and clenching your... Stop and say, how can I empathise with this person? It will be a far less painful experience for me and for them if I can connect with them on that level. And of course, you don't have to move in, take up residence. It's about dipping in, touching base, and just connecting with, really hearing them, and they letting know that you've really felt and heard their situation. And then moving on. So, would you like to start us off there, Di, with the reading on the dictionary definition of empathy? I apologise for the convoluted way, but it really had to be. Inside there, just the insert? Yeah, definition?
Sorry.
No, it's good.
Hang on, change glasses. The actions of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing feelings, thoughts, and experience of others, of either the past or present, without having the feelings, thoughts, and experience fully communicated in an objectively explicit manner. Also, the capacity for this.
Does that help? It's a bit convoluted, isn't it? Does it help? I like the you paused on vicariously. I really believe that we have, our soul has the ability to touch another soul. But we've got to stop listening with our head. And the reason I say I believe that is because for years I travelled in itinerant ministry, in healing ministry. And I would walk up to people and I could literally feel their body pains. And I could tell them. And there was one, and you think it was bizarre, but I got used to it. I got to learn to work with this. I had a photograph of the one guy, and minutes later I said, wow, you've got burning hip. He said, I've got both my hips are burning. He said, I've had degenerative hip, whatever. Sorry, Ian? Yes, and I went to have lunch, not with this guy, but with someone else later. And as I was having lunch, the burning moved from one hip over to the other. And because he had it in both hips, but it was the hip that I had next to him closest that was picking it up. Literally, our soul has the ability to read, to feel what the other soul's going through. I was out at, not Longreach, no, somewhere closer, just beyond Dalby. A town out there anyway. We were having a short weekend seminar, and we were talking about this, and in the break one of the people comes up to me and says, oh, I want you to do that thing. What? The thing where you can feel people's, here we go, they want a performance, watch the monkey dance. And anyway, I said, well, give me your hands, we'll pray. And I took her hands and I prayed, and I started saying, oh, you've got an issue with your bottom ball of your foot. Yes, I do, but that's not it. And then I ended up moving through her whole body, describing things to her. And she was still flustered, this lady, because she wanted me to nail this one thing. Almost like, give me a sign, God, And then I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm doing the best I can. And then suddenly someone came in and said, we need some help outside. Someone's fallen over in the streets. And I turned my neck and I went, oh, what is with your neck? And she went, oh, that's it. Someone told me later on, for years, her husband had been saying, you are nothing but a pain in the neck to me. And she was manifesting that. We have an ability built into us by God to really feel each other. But we're often so much in our head, we're not really connecting with each other. I'm not suggesting you live there. Believe me, you don't want to live there. But there's times where you want that gift to be able to touch another soul and say, you're not alone. I'm feeling your pain. So vicariously experiencing the feelings and thoughts, I relate to that. Synonyms. Juan, would you read those synonyms for us as best you can? They're big words.
Commiseration, tender-heartedness, kindness, kind-heartedness, sensitivity, insight, fellow feeling, brotherly love, neighborliness, decency, compassion, condolence, pity, sympathy,
Mm-hmm. Pity and sympathy.
antonyms,
Antonyms, yes?
ignorance, indifference.
Yes, so the opposite. So I don't think of pity and sympathy as being empathy, but the dictionary does. And I suppose sometimes we're searching, aren't we, to try and describe something. Did anything jump out at you then in those synonyms? Any one of those qualities?
Earlier discussion.
Yes. Yeah. How about decency? It's a bit of human decency to actually dip down into someone's world and feel what they're going through. So we talked earlier about generals, right? We can often mistake empathy for sympathy or compassion or things like that. How about this? Good and truth versus falsity and evil, something that we use all the time in the Swedenborgian Church and the New Church. We use these terms all the time. Good, truth, falsity, evil. Now in generals, that's fine. But I mean, you go down the street and ask someone what good is. I just won gold lotto. Everybody's definition of good is very different. And this is where you get down into particulars and down into specifics and you really learn what good is. What good is truly nurturing and loving the soul. Giving that to another, loving, nurturing the soul. But the word good is great for a very general sense, but it doesn't capture anything. And so compassion or brotherly love, and our list here was brotherly love. Charity. Charity is another great word. But empathy is one of those words that gets us right down into a very practical virtue. So maybe 100's not enough for a list of virtues. Maybe, if we spent our whole life working on virtues, we could find 1,000. And why you need all these different qualities. There's times where you need to spotlight in empathy. And there are other times where that's not going to work. You need to step back and have a rational compassion. And knowing the difference is important. So let's go through the quotes. Gay, would you start reading some of the quotes? Stephen Covey. I think Stephen Covey's the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yes, Stephen Covey. Do you want to read that for us, Gay?
When you show deep empathy toward others, their defensive energy goes down and positive energy replaces it.
Wow.
That's when you can get more creative in solving problems.
Well, that kind of answers what people were saying before about what do you do? How do you help the person out of their cave or their pit? Well, the answer's there. Just by being with them, you're shifting them from being negative, and they're going to start having creative solutions, as Andrew said, inside themselves. They're going to start having those. Do you want to read a couple more there?
Saraswati. Because a human being is endowed with empathy, he violates the natural order if he does not reach out to those who need care. Responding to this empathy, one is in harmony with the order of things, with Dharma. Otherwise, one is not.
What do we think of that? Dharma is, I heard Ken there, Dharma is one's religious calling, duty, your high calling in life, your Dharma. You get into order with who you're meant to be. So what do we think of that? I mean, that's people that are ignorant and indifferent are struggling to get in order. Ignorant and indifferent. Daniel Coleman?
If your emotional abilities aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness, if you're not able to manage your distressing emotions, if you can't have empathy and have effective relationships, then no matter how smart you are, you're not going to get very far.
That's true. Emotional intelligence, they're calling it now. Emotional intelligence. Go on, read us the last one. Carl Rogers, and this is my favourite.
We think we listen, but very rarely do we listen with real understanding, true empathy. Yet listening of this very special kind is one of the most potent forces for change that I know.
He was an amazing psychologist. He really was. Yeah. On that subject, when do you think the word empathy came into modern use? The word empathy. Any ideas? about 1905 through Germany. I think it sort of made its way into English as a common word. I mean, it's been in the Latin, emporium or something like emporial or something, Latin word. But in English, modern psychology has made us stop and realise that compassion is not charity, is not brotherly love, is not sympathy. You know, inside us are these incredibly deep various states, and empathy is one of them. It's very different. It's similar but different. Ian, would you jump out at those scriptural quotes for us?
Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep.
Wow. Go on, do you want to read it?
Ephesians 4. And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you.
Yes, I'm reminded of the parable that Jesus said. You know, the servant comes to the king, and the king says, "Look, you've got 100,000. No, it wasn't drachmas. It was talents that you owe me. How do you propose to pay this?" "I can't." "Well, we'll just have to put your wife and your children and you into slavery until you can pay for it, and put you on hire until you can pay for it." "Please, no, please don't do this." King says, all right, I'll have compassion, I'll cancel your debt. And then this servant panics, runs out, finds a fellow servant who owes him 100 pesos, which is really nothing compared. Grabs him by the throat and says, pay up now. I will, have patience. No, and throws him in jail. You're not getting out of there till you pay me what you owe me. The other servants panic and they go and tell the king and say, can you believe this has happened? The king brings him forward and says, how is it that I showed such compassion to you over so much and you couldn't show it over a few? It's very powerful. And the Lord then goes on to talk about prayer and how when we ask God for things, we need to forgive each other because God will give us anything. Anything we ask, really, I believe that. Anything we ask. But not when we're creating blockages. Not when we're blocking those prayers, because you want things to flow into you that you don't maybe deserve. And if you give that energy out, if you forgive others, then you're releasing that for God to give that to you. Yeah. Would you read one for us?
Yes.
Nice and loud.
Sure. John 15 verse 12.
Yeah.
This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you.
Often called the 11th commandment. 11th commandment. You love one another as I have. How did the Lord love his disciples? Sometimes he was harsh. Not terribly harsh. Put up with them, lived with them for 3.5 years. He really loved them, didn't he? In a way that is very difficult to emulate that today.
He must have had lots of empathy.
Lots of compassion. Yes, compassion displayed right down on the very personal level. He was very personal with people, wasn't he? Yeah.
He was also locked into what was best for them in a spiritual way.
Yes, that's good. That's well said.
He was all the time trying to get them to focus on higher things, not just natural things.
How many times is it, Ian, that someone asks the Lord a question, and when he answers, it's like, where are you going? It's totally dodged the question totally, and he's going somewhere else. But over time, and you read it, you realise that's exactly what he was doing. And he was bypassing what presents itself in our conscious mind, and he was going deep under the iceberg to find out what was really going on inside the person. Feeling will give you that. I've made this mistake. Okay, someone comes up to me and they have a go at me about something, and I go away and I feel really bad. And I figured it out, and I went back to that person and I said, you're feeling like this right now, and like this, and like this. And they said, how did you know? I just described to them what I was feeling when they had a go at me. They were actually trying to share. They were trying to connect. And often the ego gets in the way and says, oh, I'm so hurt, I'm so this, I'm so that. And what you're feeling is actually empathy showing you what's going on inside them. Yeah. So, Bev, would you read for us 1 Peter?
Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous.
Beautiful. That's good. Go on, read. Philippians.
Philippians 2:3. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves.
Lowliness of mind. Go on, Ian. That's not being down on yourself, is it? What's lowliness of mind?
What does it all require of you to do justly, to love mercy, and to humble yourself, to walk with the Lord? So I see lowliness as humbling oneself, realizing that we're all in the journey, and we all need each other. That's what I see.
Beautiful. John the Baptist said, I must decrease that he may increase. Lowliness is not about, woe is me and God's putting me down. Lowliness is saying, I'll put my issues aside to make room for you. That's true lowliness of mind. Put mine aside, make room for you. And when you make room for the divine, you couldn't have better company. Real answers, real solutions. So then we have, Andrew, would you go Corinthians?
1 Corinthians 12. And whether one member suffer, all the members suffer.
Wow.
Or one member in honor, one member be honoured, all the members rejoice with it.
Do we believe that? You know, I think our ego has us living our own little life. But even science today in the quantum field is showing how we are intrinsically connected. Every single thing you think and do is affecting everyone else. Oh, I love that. That stone in the water and the ripple effect. Yeah. Wow. So what I do to you, how I treat you, is really how I'm treating myself and how I will be treated. Yeah. Go on, Andrew, read us that.
Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, vows.
It's funny words,
vows
isn't it? Vows of mercy. Yeah.
Kindness, humbleness of mind, neediness, long-suffering.
Yeah, meekness and
Oh, meekness, sorry.
That's all right. You're doing so well without glasses. You can borrow
That's right.
I know exactly what it's like. Yeah, it's tough when you're trying to read that word. What about that word, bowels of mercy? Isn't that fascinating? I put the King James in there deliberately because we don't use that term much anymore. But think of being in front of a stage of 100,000 people on television right now. You're in front of the microphone. Everything you're saying is being watched. What are you feeling at that moment? Where are you feeling it? Because in your gut, you get the bowels of mercy. It's deep down in your gut, you get this feeling. Oh, God. That's where everything ends up anyway. That's well said, yeah. So it's having that feeling, really feeling for the other person, you know. So not just giving them platitudes of, she'll be right, mate. That, you know, slap them on the back. She'll be right. God's in control. It'll all work out. Yes, that's true, but people need us to connect with them on that deeper emotional level. Now, before we do the meditation, we'll read the back and the card. Beautiful passage here on the card from the writings, which I feel is giving us a real secret, a key that's overlooked. But I'll address that again in a moment. Let's read this reading first. Heaven and Hell 469. I have been shown that spirits and angels have memory by a great deal of experience as well. I have seen everything they had thought and done called up from their memory, both in public and in private, when they were with other spirits. And I have also seen people who had been focused on some truth from simple virtue become steeped in insight and in a consequent intelligence and then taken up into heaven. It should be realized, though, that they are not steeped in insight and consequent intelligence beyond the level of the affection for what is good and true that engaged them while they were in the world. what is this bizarre life that we're living? I've often said to God, do we really have to do this earthly? Like, couldn't we just be born into the eternal realm? Wouldn't that be so much easier? I think. But we are laying in time and space. Time and space is not reality. Time and space is an interface between souls. It's an interface. You go to a computer and you look at your screen. That is not the internet. It's an interface. The keyboard and the screen, isn't it? That's not really, it's electric dials clicking and circuits buzzing, and that's what it really is. But what we see, what we experience, is a keyboard and a screen comes up on a website. This life that we're living, we are laying a blueprint, a matrix for the eternal mind, the eternal soul that we're becoming. And to the depth that we can experience here and now, to the height that we can grow then. That's what he's saying. I'll read it again. He says here that it's only to the level of affection for what is good and true that you have engaged while in the world. In fact, each spirit and angel retains the amount and kind of affection she or he had in the world. And this is afterward perfected by being filled in. So we're creating a kind of matrix that eternal life fills in. This too goes on forever, since everything is capable of infinite variation and enrichment by different means. So it can be multiplied and can bear fruit. So once you've truly connected with someone and felt their feelings, you've just created a seed that's going to go on in eternity, expanding and giving you richer and richer experiences. There is no end to any instance of goodness, since its source is the infinite. Fascinating stuff. So just direct your attention to the card now. Empathy, the ability to think and feel from another person's perspective. Therefore, all things whatsoever you would that men should do to you, small, isn't it, Andrew? Sorry. Do even so unto them. Think about this. Whatsoever you would have men do to you, do to them. It's not what you want, it's how you would want to be treated. Do that to them, for this is the law and the prophets. This is everything, he's saying. Everything. Life is intrinsically connected with everything of how you treat and are treated. Swinburne says it here in Secrets of Heaven 6144. Periods of desolation and temptation are also serve as a means by which people gain an insight into states contrary to the heavenly life, and from them are given a perception and insight into the bliss and the happiness of the heavenly life. For a perception and insight into bliss and happiness come in no other way than from contrast with their opposites. Does heaven have sadness and suffering and pain and misery and sickness? No. But that we see it here, don't we? We experience it here. This is the world of dichotomy where we're experiencing good and bad. We experience it all. And it creates the depth of the suffering that you have in this life is the height of the joy that you will experience. But herein is a secret. I really believe this. Now this is Darren speaking now, so I'm not saying scripture or truth. You take it if it works for you and you leave it if it doesn't. But I believe that the Lord wants us to have a good, safe journey in this life. Does that always happen? No. Bad things happen. And I don't believe that's what God wants for us. I believe he wants us to have a good, safe journey. And he wants us to learn from the school of faith. Faith is not just belief systems. Faith is also how you live. So he wants us to learn here, say, okay, I'll practice, I'll try. I don't need to go to the school of hard knocks to find out that what you were saying was correct. Isn't it? So I believe that God's saying, trust me. I'm putting out this information, this understanding, this truth, this is how you should live. And if you can be like a child and do it, you'll experience the blessings. But we often need our own journey, don't we? So this is not judgment on anyone. We often go, yeah, that's good, God, but I'm just going to go and do this. So we switch from this school, the school of faith, and we go over to the school of hard knocks, and we get a few bruises and rough our knees, and sometimes it gets really, really, really dark and bad. But this virtue of empathy gives us a way, I believe. That's what the Lord's saying. Take it, go out and feel and connect with people, feel their pain, be with them. And I believe that we learn there. That's part of the school of faith. And if we're not willing to have that empathy, we're not willing to feel other people's feelings and learn in that way, we might be the one over here in the school of hard knocks needing someone to come to us and show us empathy. So I leave that to you as a key, a tool, something to work with. Empathy. What a virtue. Last minute thoughts? People's thoughts? Comments? I want to throw something in there. Then we'll go... No? Then we'll go to the meditation. Let's read it together. I take time to really listen to where people are at. I hold back all thoughts of judgment. I verbally reflect back to people words of understanding. I meditate upon my words and actions, examining their quality while attempting to display compassion. I seek connection with others through empathy. I am thankful, Lord, for your gift of empathy. It leads me into greater connection and relationship with others. Amen. So this is a moment where I ask you to help me close the word by singing a new commandment. Can we do that? All right. That you love one another as I have loved you. That you love one another as I have loved you. By this shall all men know you are my disciples, if you have love one to another. By this shall all men know you are my disciples, if you have love one to another. The Lord bless you, the Lord keep you. The Lord lift up his face upon you and shine his love. May his countenance come upon you, and may you experience his ever